Well, welcome to Imperfect with Rebekah and Zandra. Sorry, you're hearing my silly laugh. It was Rebekah with her sparkle fingers in the video here. We're gonna wing this one, to tell you the truth, because Rebekah wanted to kind of talk about my hacks that I don't feel like I really have for having a pandemic baby.
Pandemic baby.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like when we had masks, she didn't like them, but she's used to them. She like will grab them. If you're not watching us, I'm making these hands together, and then she'll put it over her face, or she'll grab things that look like it and put it over her face, just to be like masks. It was crazy. Like going to, this is what we didn't talk about, but hopefully your friend, I don't think we'll have to go through, is when I had my appointments, half of them were virtual and then the other half were in person, and my husband couldn't come with me. So that kind of sucked. But I did get to video the sonogram, which was a little hard, but since I was able to do that, I also included my mom. So that was nice. But it sucked because someone else I know that was recently pregnant, I think their husband got to go. And I was like, that's so awesome. I'm glad that you did. I feel like honestly, the first like newborn baby stuff would probably be the same. Like you're really concerned. You don't want anyone to come over anyway, because they don't have an immune system. The hard part is getting used to not sleeping. And I say that because my friend, the nurse, Jenny, she was like, what's your plan for after the baby comes? I'm like, what do you mean? What's my plan? She's like, like a feeding, sleeping plan, because technically if you have less than 4 hours of sleep, that's permanent brain damage. And I was like, great, good to know. And I was like, that's probably why it's mommy brain.
Yeah.
Because they don't sleep. Because she was able to do a plan with her husband. They bottle fed more than me, I feel like. She got lucky. She was able to pump. Whereas for me, it was hard because even though I did try to pump, when I pumped, I didn't really get anything. So at night, the late nights, whatever, early mornings, I would tend to still just pick her up and latch her on. Cause she seemed to prefer it. Like that's when she actually drank the most, I feel like, from me, was when it was late night. Actually, early mornings we would often make a formula bottle though, because I just, at that point I was like, well, I think my body's done. So that was usually the 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock feeding, somewhere in there. And I think that's normal for most people. Like there's just going to be, you wake up at 10, 12, 2, 4, or somewhere around those. It was really hard. I was a very grumpy mom. I'm sure the baby, like, I think she got a little bit of it too, because I don't do well with not enough sleep in general already.
Yes.
Like to add on a human you're trying to sustain was not great either. My husband did help. It's funny because he actually was like, I feel useless. And I could see how they do. He's like, you're feeding her. Like, I can't physically feed her. Like if I could, great, but I can't. So the first 6 months, I think he really felt like useless, because he's like, she's just tiny and she really just needs you. Like, I don't have a lot to do with it. He pretty much changed all the diapers and did all the swaddling now. The nurses taught him that, because when we were in the hospital, I was just like too tired. I was like, what? I was like, sure. I was like, you're learning that. I would say the biggest thing is do what works best for you. We had a bedside bassinet that she sort of slept in sometimes, but honestly, we ended up doing a lot of co-sleeping. And I know in the States, like it's not suggested, but a lot of other countries, they do it. That's normal. That's what they do. I mean, I get it. I was terrified of it, but actually my husband accidentally fell asleep with her next to him in the bed. So I was like, if he can figure out how to not move with the baby next to him for a couple of hours, I can totally do it. So I looked up how to like, co-sleep, or at least get more sleep for myself, which was co-sleeping. And we still do it sometimes because I don't want to have the fight. This is why it works better for us. I don't want to have the fight of her getting up and in and out, because now she's a toddler who can move around. She's not just going to stay in my lap, get up and down in her room and go to the door and back. Like, I don't want to do that for 30 minutes, an hour. Like, it's if you want to, great. I have no, maybe your kid isn't like mine, which is also great. I don't want to say what you're doing is wrong. For me, I just was like, no, I'd rather you come lay in my bed. Like, cause she usually chills out if she gets here. She's like, all right, fine. I guess we're going to sleep. Whereas sometimes in her room, she's like, let's go to the door. Let me turn on the light. Let me go get my mini and put it on the pillow and put her to sleep and next lay down to her. But when mommy asks me if we're going to sleep, I'm going to say no. And I'm going to get up. Like, yeah. That was only 5 minutes probably. And I'm already like, oh my gosh, can we go to bed, please?
So when, for those who don't know, you got pregnant in 2020, correct?
Yeah. So I got pregnant in March. So it was like, so everyone got sent home around like March 16th or 18th-ish. Actually, no, it wasn't. Actually, it was technically March, but I didn't find out until early April. So April 8th was when I took a home test. And then I went to my doctor and she did a test and just confirm it, because they have to confirm it. I don't know why. Yeah. So from there, actually, so my gynecologist doesn't do obstetrics anymore. So I ended up having to find a whole new clinic. So I asked her, I was like, okay, who do you suggest? So then I went to a different clinic, and that's where they had those strict protocols, which I totally get.
Was it hard to find one then that was like open at that time?
Not really. It's a big clinic. They had a lot of offices. I just had to go to the main one by the hospital that we ended up delivering at anyway, which is pretty much the only hospital. It's not the only one, but it's the main one on the west side of the Portland metro area that delivers babies. I mean, if you're not going to be in the city. So yeah, everything was like that, actually. Like, you could only have one visitor, like at the hospital, which was my husband, like, and he couldn't leave. So when we went to check in, he dropped me off at the door. I went and walked and he found his way. And I was like, oh yeah, my husband's coming. And they were like, okay. And they were like, you can't leave, or they were like, expect it that you can't leave, because once you leave, you can't come back in, is really what it was.
Oh my gosh.
So they did actually let him leave once. I think it was before I went into labor and everything, because he was like, he didn't bring something. Oh, because he was afraid that they were going to be like, no, your water didn't break, because it's possible, like they'll send you home.
Oh yeah.
But they confirmed it. So he's like, can I go get our bags and stuff? And they're like, oh yeah, sure. Go ahead and get your bags. Which I think it was just like 2 pairs of shorts, a nightgown for me, like a baby outfit. It was funny. I didn't even think about clothing her when I didn't think about being there for 3 nights, because we stayed overnight when I got my water broke. And then we stayed overnight 2 extra nights. So we were there Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. And we left Sunday morning. So I only brought one outfit for her, and it was giant. And I brought a blanket, but I forgot where it was. Like, that's when you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, when they're like, we're going to discharge you. And I was like, can we stay longer? We got nurses that help me out and help her out and even help my husband out. So yeah, that was the part, like the getting home, like the nervousness. So you're like, can we just stay?
Yes.
I mean, I know it's gonna be expensive, but can we just stay? Yeah, we had to, it's funny. I don't think I said this during the last episode, But as my contractions were actually getting painful, like actually intolerable, is when they also gave me a COVID test. So that was fun.
Oh my gosh. Seriously?
Yeah. Cause they were required. They did it for everyone. Well, they didn't do it for my husband. I was surprised though. So all the patients they gave a test to, he had to wear a mask regardless. But I think it was because they wanted to let the moms not wear a mask. So because it came back negative, I didn't have to wear a mask, which was really nice. Because I know in some places, mainly California and New York, like you had to wear a mask during it.
Oh my God.
And I don't think it would have been that bad, but I'm really glad that I didn't have to.
I don't know if I could. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be.
And I think it might be similar in that case, like going to the hospital. I don't think much of the restrictions have changed in that situation, other than visitors. I think visitors have changed. Oh, so before she came, though, I asked the doctor that I had chosen for this. I was like, okay, I know ultimately it's up to me, but what would you recommend for family visiting the baby? She's like, well, you don't want them in the first 2 weeks. She's like, but I was like, because we're actually going to have her grandparents stay with us. Like my mom is currently at my brother's, and she's been there for a while. She hasn't gone anywhere. She's like 2 weeks of isolation. She's like, obviously, as much as you can, like some people got to go to the store, so that's understandable. And she's like, and I think she said at least 2 weeks of isolation. I think she might have suggested testing, but that was up to us. So my mom was like, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm just going to stay in your brother's house and not see anyone. So we saw them pretty quickly. And actually my brother's family all did that too. I think it was really just, we had Christmas, but it was my parents, my brother's family, which is 4 of them. And then me, my husband, and Sabine. And that was it. Because Christmas was 2 weeks later.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it was really crazy. And then from there on, we still didn't really see anyone. Oh, we also we had housemates at the time when she was born, because we were still living in our rental house.
Yes.
But they never went anywhere either. They all worked from home, and they did grocery pickup, or even like, I don't know if they did Instacart, because Instacart delivers. Mm-hmm. And we did a lot of DoorDash then. So it was crazy. I'm sure we were spending way more money than we needed to, but we didn't have a meal train set up, which I know people did back in the day, and people still do it. Like that is the biggest thing, I think, is having meals set for you. Cause you definitely do not want to cook when you're a new mom. And if your husband isn't really more than spaghetti, you don't want spaghetti all day, every day.
Well, and it's like, I remember even looking back at pictures of Nathan when we were in the hospital with, I think it was Vico. And I was like, man, you think he was the one that just gave birth? He looks more exhausted than you. And it takes a toll on them because, like you said, they do feel helpless. Like, so they're watching you go through all of this. And so it's draining for them as well, just to see you go through everything. They don't know what to expect. And
yeah,
then you get home.
That's true.
And then like if you have additional kids, I know that was like the biggest thing. Like Nathan was just more exhausted from helping with the other kids, or your pets, or, or if they're working. And, so at one point he ended up even sleeping in another room because he's like, I have to operate heavy machinery, and Dexter wasn't sleeping.
Oh yeah.
Last one, number 4. So yeah, I mean, yes, they don't go through that whole process, but I feel like in a different way, it's just as exhausting for them. So they're not going to want to.
Oh yeah. Cause they get to see, it's terrible to say it, but they see the trauma, cause it's kind of traumatic that you're physically going through if they're there. And I hope your partner is there with you. Like, yeah. Even if they're not going to catch the baby or cut the cord or whatever, like hopefully they're right there next to you. That's the kind of partner I have, and luckily have always wanted. And I hope that everyone else has that too. Cause he definitely afterwards was telling me about all of his current concerns. Like when the nurses would come in, when her heart rate would drop and her recovery was slow. And while I was having the contractions and like all of my moving and like when I actually threw up too. I didn't tell that part.
Really?
Well, I was telling the nurse before I had any sort of medications, I was like, I'm kind of shaky. And they're like, oh yeah, that's normal. And I was like, I kind of felt like I figured that was kind of normal. I was like, it's either because I'm freezing because it's kind of cold or because I'm in a lot of pain, which I am. They're like, yeah, you can get the shakes. I was like, okay. And I think just all of it. And then when they did give me fentanyl is what it's called. Right before I started pushing, I was like, I need to, like, I got this bitter taste. So they're like, oh, here's a bag. And I was like, okay, great. Oh, it was not fun. Yeah.
They gave you fentanyl?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's insane. And my friend told me not to take it and I should have listened. And I tried. One nurse was really all about it. Like, definitely just go with your gut. I really wish I said no still. Like, even though I said no 2 times before, I was like, no, I really don't want that.
Huh. I never have heard of anybody.
I know.
It must be a thing because obviously it's not like but
I wonder if it's like more, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It was surprising. And because at first I was like, what? And then I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, no.
But then again, I've always just gone straight for the epidural. So maybe that's why.
They were saying, she was like, you'll still feel it. You just won't really care, which I guess was true. That's exactly what Ryan said. Like he's like, yeah, your demeanor totally changed after you had it. I was like, oh, well, it still hurt as I was like, it was still real bad. I didn't realize my demeanor changed. I was like, I was terrible. I didn't think it did anything other than make me feel terrible. I was like, oh yeah, there it is. I could feel it. My head like did that weird to me, like when you are on a roller coaster and everything that just like drops. So you have a weird drop feeling. That's what it did. And I was like, oh no, why do people like this? Yeah. So I was like, oh, well, it hurt. It was still terrible. And I was like, it didn't do anything.
So once you got to go, like, did they test you? So they didn't test Ryan. And then you'd only had to do the one test, right? The COVID test.
Yeah.
And then you got to go home. So what was it like going home? Like, did you ever end up having people come over and visit you guys at all?
I think his adoptive parents came over. I can't really remember, but I think they stayed outside. And I want to say that because at least his aunt and his cousin came over, I feel like, because I remember looking at them in a screen door. His cousin wasn't vaccinated. I don't know if she is. And we're like, I'm sorry, you can't see her then. So they kind of saw her at like a zoo. They saw her through our glass window screen door from afar as they were dropping off gifts or food or maybe both. I don't remember. But no, we didn't have anyone come over. We did like a month later. We had a couple of friends that we worked with who had a baby in like August. So I'm sure their story is similar. So we went for a walk outside in the park and we all wore masks and the babies were just in their strollers. So that was nice. We're actually gonna have a play date with her on Monday. Finally, I'm excited. I'm excited for her to interact with other kids.
Yes. I think
that's the other thing.
That's gotta be the hardest part, I feel like, because my kids are, my youngest is 8 and my oldest is 14. And that was one of the most isolating times for me, like being home. And even then I was so worried about them getting sick and being exposed. And, that was like definitely the top thing on my mind when we were going to have people come and visit, and just needing that interaction with adults instead of just your baby. Trying to be present in the moment with your baby, but at the same time, you're like, oh my gosh, I just need to get out of the house. And I remember just, especially with my oldest, my mom would take me to the mall and we just go and walk and just get out. And we weren't really doing anything, but I just had to get out of the house. I feel like that would be so much harder, especially during like the first year with the shutdown and everything. I think that would have been the hardest thing.
Yeah, it was, I guess so. We took a lot of walks. We still take walks. because Ryan actually he took 2 weeks off because it was
that's awesome.
Paid paternity. But then he went back to work for like a week, and then he took, because his vacation started over every calendar year, he took 2 more weeks off because he wanted to do the full time that they allowed. But he didn't want part of it to be unpaid. Yeah. So that's what it was. So he took, I don't remember. I think he took at least a month total off. I feel like he took more. She had jaundice technically most babies do. Don't be alarmed. If you're a new mom or pregnant, turns out most babies have jaundice when they come out, especially if they're a little early or a lot early. Hers wasn't too bad. And that we didn't do any of the light therapy or the blanket or anything, but the doctor was like, go outside, take some walks. And I was like, okay, you don't have to tell me. I will be outside. Let's go. So yeah, I think at 2 weeks we took her out for a little walk. And she still loves to be outside. I think that's just like I mentioned before. I think it's just human nature though. Like we built these houses for ourselves, which are really nice, but we still need the outdoors, and children remind us when they're tiny.
Yes. And then we have to remind them when they get older.
Right. Yeah. I'm wondering how long it's going to be before I have to be like, go outside. Part of me is hoping she's more like me, but part of me is hoping that she's kind of like Ryan so that I know where she is. She's just playing her computer. Where's the beat? Oh, she's in her room playing computer.
Probably us, like just outside. I was never and if I was inside, it was like in my own little world and creating things. And oh my gosh, my kids, I remember I was like, where did you come from? I have to constantly tell you to go play or use your imagination to go outside. And
where did you come from?
Yeah. And then it was, I don't remember how old they were. Finally, it was kind of like, oh, okay. They started kind of doing more of their own thing, but so it's nice that it seems like life is getting a little more back to normal over here in Idaho. It got back to normal a lot faster. Nobody cared. But I was just telling Zandra before we started recording that I was in Washington this last weekend, and there was, it was not uncommon to see people in masks still out and about. And I was like, it's hard nobody really wants to wear masks over here, which is fine, like one way or whatever. But it made me start thinking about that. And like with little, I was like, oh my gosh. And even I had a doctor's appointment today and trying to get Dexter to wear his mask. He's 8. And I'm like, gosh, I can't even imagine for like little ones and moms just getting in the groove of things and having to worry about it.
I know. And that's the one thing, like I said to Ryan, I hope by the time that she's 2, we don't really have to deal with masks. And hopefully it seems like that's kind of the case. But at the same time, I was just reading something that was like, they're actually all the cases, like COVID is actually going up a lot. Lots of people are getting it, and it doesn't seem like anyone's really being that careful. I know a lot of friends that have gotten their littles, they're like around Sabine's age, vaccinated. We haven't yet, which I know is crazy to say because we've done other vaccinations. I think it's because we don't really go anywhere, but I'm still kind of on the fence. Like I feel more like I would like to, and my husband is kind of more on the, if we don't really need to, do we really need to? Because we had talked to our doctor about it, and I'm still like, we'll see. Yeah. I mean, we both have to be on the same page, though. It's not like I'm going to go take her by myself and just get her vaccinated. That would be terrible to my husband. Yeah, I actually did buy a little mask for her, like a cloth one. We have a couple of disposable ones too, because I was like, maybe I do want her to wear it. Like if we're not vaccinated yet, and like I don't know. And by we, I mean her. He and I are. We'd actually even have our booster. I think we technically qualify for the 4th one because we do live with my parents. But anyway, no one has gotten that. Yeah, I don't know. It was a crazy ride, but like when you asked me to talk about it again, I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't, is it different than being a new mom, not in a pandemic? I think my pregnancy to me seems like it was different because I literally didn't see anyone. And not that I really wanted to, I didn't have anyone try to touch my bump, and I didn't have anyone ask how far along I was really. I did a few people because I still was going to the office every other day, but they didn't try to touch my bump, but they would be like, oh, how far are you? Or you look small, you're carrying low. It's probably going to be a boy. I have a long torso, so it looked like it was low. It was pretty much in the middle. Yeah. But no one really got to see that. So they couldn't be like I worked at a law firm with like, I don't know, 150 people, and like almost no one knew I was pregnant.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the craziest part. Whereas normally I would be walking around and people would have seen me and probably asked me questions. None of it. So it was definitely really weird to be like, I'm pregnant. No one knows. I'm going to have a kid and no one's going to know.
And at the same time, though, it's probably kind of nice that you just got to keep it for you guys, just for you guys. Like,
I mean, I did. Yeah, it was fun for me and my husband. I think overall, though, like it was definitely weird. I felt indifferent about it. Like I didn't have, and maybe it's because I didn't have someone asking me all the time, how do you feel? It's like, physically, I'm growing something. I'm not throwing up. I have an appetite. Great. I'm sleeping. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know. I don't feel much different than when I wasn't pregnant. And then because I think most people, when they ask that question, are asking you, how are you feeling about the baby? And I'm like, it's growing. It's healthy. That's all I know. Right? Like, seriously, I felt like I didn't have any feelings about it. And I was actually, afterwards, I was really upset about it because I'm like, I didn't have feelings.
So it was just because like so many of us were just kind of like in survival mode during that period.
I mean, honestly, it probably was because I was like, well, I'm trying to survive for two people right now. Like, I don't want to see anyone. Don't.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because I was with my cousins this last weekend, and the one that still has little ones, like hers are younger than mine. And we were both saying how we actually kind of missed that time period because we selfishly got to keep our kids to ourselves and really have just this whole time period where we got to really bond and just do fun things. And it brought out our creative side of keeping them entertained and happy and stuff. And so, but again, totally different stages of life with our kids. And so, I loved it. I had no guilt about just staying home and not seeing anybody. I think that's probably when I realized that I'm a lot more introverted than I realized. Yeah. I love being around people, but I'm a total homebody. And so, but I can see how it could have been really difficult for people who really needed that social interaction and those physical touch type of people.
Sure. I think that reminded me how more extroverted than I think I am, because I used to be, or I thought I was super extrovert, like only extrovert. Turns out I'm kind of both. So yeah, the experience was totally different. But yeah, being home with her, I was like, you can come over if you want, but we're going to be outside and you're going to wear a mask and you're probably still going to be 6 feet away and I'll hold her. So yeah. So
don't breathe on us.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Although, I mean, my early mom anxiety was ridiculous. Like, I am the first one to admit that I was ridiculous. It's their first few years, probably, like so overly protective, so paranoid about dirt. I mean, just everything, feeding them. Like, my sister tried to give my oldest a straw of water and I flipped because I was like, you can't give babies water. And she was like, what the hell? It's like, because they're like, don't give them water in a bottle. Right?
Yeah.
You want to feed them. And so I took that in the most literal sense ever, that you cannot give babies water. So I can't even imagine like having babies like during, especially 2020. I think I would have probably lost my mind. Although since I had it, I would have been home, maybe not so much, but I guess I don't know. I think of how others would feel going through it. And I loved that early momhood phase, but at the same time, I struggled a lot with knowing what was right, second guessing everything. The biggest mistake I did was like listen to and took everything my doctor said literally, and then like blogs and articles on how you're supposed to do things. And then I'm like, they're just regular moms. They're not specialists or anything. And I thought I had to do and be the picture perfect mom and do all the, like, I literally mopped my house every single day because heaven forbid there be a germ on the floor and they might crawl on it. Like crazy mom here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that most new moms will go through some sort of iteration version of that. Cause when we did live with the housemates, they had a dog and they didn't vacuum much. So we really didn't move outside of our bedroom that much. So I totally get it. I sometimes would take her down, and it was definitely when she was like a month. Because I was like, oh, there's all this hair. I don't know how the dog is going to react. I don't know how the baby's going to react. I don't even want to clean it up. I don't want him to lick her. Like all the things that a dog might do. So I totally get it. Our room was really big and we had a bathroom attached. We had the master suite with the in-suite bathroom, or however they call it these days. And a walk-in closet that probably could have technically been her room if I just took everything out of it. So yeah, I think that's normal. Maybe yours was a little extreme. Mine sounded a little extreme as well. Like I said, didn't really leave the bedroom. That's where the husband that just orders the food and brings it up comes in handy.
Yes. I'm proud of how far I've come with I call it my mom anxiety, because I have my own other weird quirks and things that I worry about, but my mom anxiety is in a whole different level. And it's taken a lot of work, and I still have to work at it all the time to just chill. And thankfully Nathan's like he's the one that like pulls me and reins me in, like, it's going to be okay. Like, just let them be kids. And oh my gosh.
Yeah. I will say, as a new mom, that's the hard thing too. Like I have recently, you don't want your child to fall, right? So yeah. Like since she's been walking for a longer time, she seems to have her balance better. So I let her start climbing on things more and running, even though I don't want her to run, mainly inside. But so she likes to run, which is not surprising. I think all toddlers do anyway. But so she has all these tiny little bruises, one on her arm from running into something there, and one on the other arm, and a bunch on her shins. And I'm like, you're fine. It's fine. I know you are. Everyone gets bruises. But you're just like, oh no, you fell. And then the hardest part though, is not making a big reaction to it. Cause you're like, oh my God, what happened? And then you're like, oh, nothing. You're good. Okay. And sometimes I've actually done it with her. I've scared her and I'm like, I'm sorry. I said that to her though. I was like, I'm sorry. I did not mean to scare you. Mommy overreacted. Yeah. You're okay. We're okay.
We're okay. We are okay.
Yeah. I have said that already. Literally. She's 1.5. Guys, 1.5. I need her to know. Cause we had mentioned this in a previous podcast. I don't remember which one, but I'm more of the, you don't really have emotions other than the happy ones. Right. So I want her to know that the other ones are okay if she feels them, and like, it's okay to feel them. We try to process them so we can get back to what we want, which is hopefully happy.
Yes. Yes. That's good though. It's really important for them to learn that at an early age. And fortunately, we have an amazing doctor here and like a counselor who works like on cognitive therapy with them. And thankful, I'm so thankful for them because it's really helped me as a mom who has grown up like I was never taught. I don't think I was ever taught that we only are to be happy. It's just, I come by it naturally. And it's just something I don't like being unhappy. And, even when I am unhappy, I will put on a front, like everything is totally fine. I'm horrible about that. But so I look at that and how it's affected me, negatively as well. And so I try really hard to help them with that. And it's still, it's a process because I also didn't know how I was going to raise boys. I'm really hoping it does kind of get back to normal. And especially like these little ones, I, again, worry, and it's not even my own children, but like how that's going to affect even moms and like their kids' state of mind as they go to, because I know for my older kids, when everything shut down, it was so hard on them, which is probably why I like overcompensated when we were all home to try to make it like this little happy oasis at home and all these fun things we're going to do. And
I feel like with her and anyone born kind of in the same age, they might be too young. But in like, I want to say like, cause I know like the social interaction, cause they didn't really have it yet, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So they're not missing it. And hopefully I'm sure it probably affects her some way, slightly for not having that. But as long as we can start to incorporate it, which we have been, like when I go to Fit for Mom and she's at least sees the other kids. So they're a little bit bigger than her. So I think they probably have family that they see more often that have kids their age. That's the other thing. She's young. Her cousin's 14. Her cousins are your kids' age. So it's nice she's just trying to figure that out. So that's good though.
That's good that you're getting her out there to do that, because I do think they start learning from that at a very young age. Because I look at the difference between my oldest and like Dexter. Dexter at least always had his siblings. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of play dates from like, I don't remember how old he was when we started doing play dates for him, but like Vico, I'm pretty sure he was probably like a few weeks old when we started doing play dates because I had the older kids. So they were always used to that. But QP definitely had a harder time with social interactions than, let's say, Dexter. It's also personality though, but
right. Yeah.
Learning how to get along with kids. And this is my mom anxiety. This is, you can see it like coming different fingers, not sparkle.
Anxiety.
My brain, when I was trying to think of words, was just like going off into like 5 million different things. Oh, it's so bad.
Well, and speaking of mom anxiety, that's another thing that I had to first acknowledge, like, cause I didn't necessarily, like, we started taking her to the stores with us. My husband and I think it's when my parents went out of town in June. One of the times I went back to Eastern Oregon, they were gone for a few weeks. And it was this year recently when everyone's like, hey, we're reopened-ish, So I was really hesitant. I was like, do we really want to take her to the store? I was like, can you go by yourself? We can't really, honestly, because it's usually Costco that we go to. Like, that's the main place that we go to. And then we started going to restaurants, but we'd be outside, like, not big restaurants, but like local stuff. And I was just like, I had the mom anxiety brain everywhere. And I was like, okay, I understand that this is me possibly being paranoid. Okay. Yes. I understand that we are in a pandemic, even though everyone's pretending that we're not. Got it. Okay. Am I going to let loose a little so that we can, do things as a family? Okay. Yes. Yes. Like literally, like I had to do this. I think I might've even done it out loud like this. Cause I was just like, I really didn't want to take her to the stores, and I really didn't want to take her inside a restaurant. I was like, they're too small. Like, I don't know the ventilation. I know we know the people and where their usuals, but I would just, all the things. And I think the pandemic did make me probably a little more paranoid than I would be, but I think I would still be a little bit like this, because when I used to watch my niece and nephew, I told my husband, I was like, oh, when we have a kid, I'm going to be a helicopter mom. And he's like, what? And I was like, a helicopter mom, it's a term. And he's like, I don't understand. It's like, okay. So when I used to watch Lily and Mateo, I would take them to the park and I would play with them. But I would play with them because I wanted to make sure that they didn't fall, or I was right there to catch them. I was like, I was paranoid that something was going to happen. He was like, well, that's probably because it's your niece and nephew. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure that's how I want to be.
I just can't get past what you said. I'm going to let loose Lil and we're going to go to the store.
Right? Exactly. Like, normally you're like, let loose, party. No, mine is go to the store, do a normal thing that you did 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Oh God. See, don't even know anymore.
I know. If you are a new mom or expecting mom, just know that mom anxiety before all of this is like a real thing. And some of us, I'm pointing at myself if you're not watching us on video, some of us have it a lot worse than others. And with all of this, with the pandemic and everything, just know that it's normal to have a lot of these worries and anxieties, and you're not alone in that, because parenting is the most rewarding and hardest job that you will ever have. And we worry. I saw a thing the other day, so it's a total random side thought of Rebekah. There was like a reel, and it was like, you know what's really funny? I just thought of today. She's like, I'm a mom. Me. I'm responsible
I've seen that one.
for keeping this little person alive. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is totally me. I still think that. I have 4 kids, and I'm like, I still think that all the time. Like, oh my gosh, me. I'm supposed to be responsible. And for 4 kids, like,
that's funny. When I first saw it, I didn't think of you in that, but I see it and it's funny. I mean, it was funny at first, but yeah. Well, and then the other thing, if you are going to be a new parent, is if you read those books and those blogs and whatever, great. If you can find tips on it, great. Don't think it's going to be all of your answers. I actually did the opposite. I think maybe because of you, I was like, I'm not going to read any parent thing at all. I'm not going to do it. I was like, cause who knows how my kid's going to turn out anyway. So
yes. Yeah, I think that's the greatest advice I've ever given somebody is don't read them. Like, it's great that there's so much information out there, but sometimes it's too much. And it's a lot of the time, it's not going to pertain to you and how your kid is and your personality, their personality types. If they have any, learning disabilities or, emotional challenges or anything like that, like, it's not going to pertain to you, and you can't force it to work that way if it's not meant for you in that, what's the word I'm looking for? Method.
Method.
It might not apply to you. And so, we have our motherly instincts for a reason, and just listen to those and know that you know what's going to be best for your child. And as long as you're actively trying and you're trying to do better every day, then that's like all you can do. And you can't worry about what other people are doing or what they're saying or what advice. If they give you advice, great. It doesn't mean you have to follow it either, because you're going to have so many people tell you along the way, oh, you should have done this, or, oh, when they act like that, then you got to do X, Y, Z. Like, great. I'm glad that may have worked for you. Thanks for the help, or the tips or whatever, but it might not work. And so that was one thing, like, when Zandra and I talked about like doing the podcast and like having things that we want to offer as like help and tips and stuff, Doesn't mean that just because it works for us, it's going to work for other people. But sometimes you might find yourself struggling because you've tried everything you can and you're like, I just need an idea. Sometimes an idea will spark inspiration for your own method that's going to work. And I feel like that is what it should do, not follow what everybody else is saying to a T. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I hope so. As I said, I was going to say yes, though, because it kind of makes me think of sleep training, because we sort of did it. Well, we did it and it sort of worked, but it didn't sound like the way it worked in the book, supposedly. And it didn't sound like it worked for these other people's types of kids. And I basically chalked it up to being like, my kid is slightly different. The situation is different. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they were beforehand. I'm not even going to try and figure it out. I'm going to do my thing. So I do part of that training that we did, like when we can, like part of it is the bedtime routine, like we sort of have one, but we don't necessarily. Like I mix it up a little bit because like I've mentioned before, like if she's going to get up a bunch of times, like she nurses and then she like points at something and then she nurses and then she's trying to get up and then she nurses. And I'm like, no, we're not doing this. Or then she just, yeah. So like in that case, I'm like, okay, we're getting up. I'm not going to force her to sit here. I'm not going to also put her in her bed where she's going to just stand up and climb anyway. And I know some people are all about crying it out. I just personally, I couldn't do it. And that's okay. Yeah. If you need someone to say that, we both just said that. That's okay. If that's not what you like, if you can't do it personally, that's okay. That wasn't meant for you. And that's okay.
And you will figure it out. That's the thing about motherhood too, I feel like, is that you will figure it out one way or the other, what's going to be the best for you and your kid. I have tried so many different methods and each kid is different too. Like, holy moly, I never thought my kids could be so different. And that might, I am so crazy because I'm tired, but you figure it out. And what works one day might not work the next day. And you just need to
that too. Yeah.
They change just as much as we do. And every day is going to it might be a new challenge tomorrow. And so just learn that you're take a deep breath. You're doing a great job and give yourself that grace in that.
Oh yeah. Yep. And if you don't love the early baby, just throwing this out here real quick, the early babyhood, which most moms do, let me tell you, I'm the one that did not. Like, it's okay. That's okay too. Like, seriously, I did not like those first few months, like 6, 7, maybe even 8 and 9, maybe. No, I think 9 was good. 6. So like 6-ish, at least 6. They're really hard. It's okay that you might not love it. And maybe later, because Rebekah and a lot of my other friends, after that time, they remember loving it. And that's great. I don't. I still don't remember. I didn't love it. And when looking back on it, I don't love it. So it's okay. It's okay. It didn't mean that I was a bad mom. It just meant that stage was really hard for me. And I that's how it's going to be. That I can't change it. There's no reason to worry about it.
Exactly. And you'll find that there's going to be phases within that phase that are going to be challenging. And then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I love this. And then they're going to drive you crazy. So it's normal. It is so normal to feel like that. And because I was the same way. I loved the baby phase. My youngest, we always say that if he would have been the first one, we wouldn't have had any more. He was so hard. And it was so, it was definitely a not fun period of time because of that. But yeah, I can look back now and be like, oh, I still miss it. I love the phase we're in right now. I think I said this like in a couple episodes a while back, but this is like probably my favorite phase. I love them. Right. If I could just make them stay exactly how they are right now, I would just, they're so awesome. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you guys are not already, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, imperfect WRNZ or Imperfect with Rebekah and Zandra. And you can listen to us on Podbean, Spotify, Apple, or check us out on Facebook. You can also listen there as well. And then you can watch us on YouTube. Yay. And we hope you guys have a perfectly imperfect day.
Yes.
We will catch you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.